Yeah. All right, it's all yours, Bill.
Okay, thank you. So again, my name is Bill Murray from Places Associates. We're planners, landscape architects, civil engineers, and surveyors. We're working for and on behalf of the town through the project architect, John McMillan, who's on the phone from Kalo Bienick. They're public safety architects. Also on the line, you can see his picture up there. He's muted. Anthony DeLuzio. He's the town's owner's project manager from Colliers International. And I thought I saw the police chief on somewhere as well. We met with you November 4th on 2020 to show you the site plans and to just preliminarily go through our site design. So what I thought, I'd start with the architect explaining the building, and then I'll go into some of the details on the site design, if that's okay, Madam.
All right, Bill, are you going to show the floor plans or elevations?
Yep, looking for them. I had them up. Oh, here we go. Let's see. No, it's hiding them. There we go. There we go.
All right,
So
you don't happen to have the rendering, do you?
I do not.
Okay. If you want to, I can share my screen. I have the rendering.
That's not within my control to do.
I'll give you access, John. 1 second. You can stop sharing, Bill, and then John will take over. There you go.
Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So the Ashby Public Safety Building, our proposed project, is about a 9,700 square foot addition to the existing fire station, which is about a 4,000 square foot structure. The design of the public safety facility is designed to fit within the community. It is a sort of traditional style. It is sided. In this particular case, it's vinyl sided. A couple different types of siding, clapboard and shake siding. Colors have not been determined yet, but in the rendering, you see a little bit of red sort of in a lower wainscot and grays above, but that's not guaranteed to be the final color. It's very traditional. It's got traditional trim, painted cement board trim, asphalt shingle siding, typical 6 and 12 pitched roofs, gutters and downspouts. Some areas of the building, mostly adjoining the existing flat roof fire station, are themselves low sloped roofs. We do that just so we don't impose new snow loads on the existing structure, which would cause some structural costs to be accrued. The windows are traditional double hung vinyl clad or aluminum clad windows, storefront doors. Again, sort of in a traditional style. We wanted this to fit within the overall community. There is you can see a little bit of it in the back. There will be, and we'll discuss a communication tower. The size of it and the actual construction of it is not part of this project yet. So it's not part of our permit. The facility itself, the design of the floor plan, which you can see here, colored kind of simplistically, blue police, yellow common space, and the red tone is fire. So generally speaking, a police facility is a very secure area that requires a lot of privacy. The areas of the police here include administrative office space, a squad room for the patrol officers, their locker spaces, some record storage, sergeant's office against the lobby. There's evidence and evidence processing and armory spaces. There is in the back of the facility a sally port, which is a a garage-like facility where you can drive a police cruiser in there and transport a prisoner undercover and in a secure environment into the booking area and into holding cells. There are 2 holding cells, a booking space, another holding pen area, basically. On the fire side, there is a fire chief's office, so fire prevention office, which is against the lobby. There's a day room, which is a shared break space for both the police and fire area. There is a conference room, emergency operations center, which is also a shared facility between the police and fire. I didn't mention it, but there's an interview space also off the lobby, which is a shared space that if you have someone coming in and you want to have a quick meeting with them, you don't need to transport them through more secure areas of the buildings. You can have a meeting right here off the lobby, either a larger size in the conference room or a smaller size in this 1 or 2 person interview space. The remaining parts of the fire facility include storage spaces, fire officers' desk space, a shower, lavatory. There's a lavatory here too, and an ambulance engine bay here, 2-bay new construction. This area here on the far left is the existing fire station. We are doing a minimal amount of work to that. We're saving and using all of the funds, most of the funds on the new addition. We're only doing work here, which is required by code on the existing fire stations, such as sprinklers. I won't take you through the intricacies of the design, but the intent here is that the public would come in through the into the lobby and off the lobby without going any further from the lobby, which is a secure space. They'd have access to the police administration, the police chief, and any administrative assistant. They have access to a small meeting space. They would have access through a transaction window to the police quarter, and any police officer arriving here when they call or doorbell to transaction and business with the police. There's a transaction window here to the fire prevention EMS office, so that someone having business with the fire department can actually do business through the window, through a transaction window, such as fire permits. So we're basically trying to keep the whole public within the lobby space as much as we can. There is access to the fire quarter and also the larger conference room we mentioned. As I mentioned, it's about a 9,000 square foot addition. There's about a 700 square foot garage, which is an alternate bid, which is basically if bids come in low enough that we can afford to build it, we would like to build a 2-bay garage. It's semi-critical to the police function. There's also another alternate, which is over this area where, when Bill explains the site plan a little bit better, there will be some cars parked here where the patrol cars will be coming in through the back door, the staff entrance to the police facility. There's an alternate for a optional carport, which is a roof to go over this area so that the police can park their cars under a roof and they don't have to keep the engine running to keep it clear of ice and snow in the wintertime and run the engines any longer. It's very convenient. Bill, did I hit all your points?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I can figure out how to stop sharing.
Top center should be little red tab.
Well, something happened to my Zoom window. Let me find it. Here we go. Thank you.
Okay, so Bill Murray again. So the site, as everybody knows, is the site of the existing fire station. It's located on 34.4 acres of land. The land is zoned residential commercial district. Eastern portions of the site fall within the Ashby Center Village Overlay District, but none of our buildings are located in the overlay district. As John said, the addition is about 9,000 square feet. So here is the alternate garage. And when we say bid alternate, if we put it out to bid, and if the bids come in where we hope they come in, then we'll be able to build it. If not, it will just be a grassed area. And then behind the station as John had mentioned, there's a canopy cover. I think, John, this is similar to Ashburnham, right?
Similar, yes.
Okay, so that you won't see that canopy cover from the street, but it will cover 4 parking spaces to the rear of the building. So let me just walk you very quickly through the site. We have 7 public spaces, including a handicap accessible space in the front parking lot. There'll be 2 signs here that say authorized entry only. This is the easterly drive. There are 8 spaces for police staff parking, including an electric car charging station right there. There will be 2 parking spaces in front of the garage bay, plus if the garage is built, 2 parking spaces in the garage bay, and 4 more spaces for cruisers behind. There are 3 spaces behind the existing fire station where the chief and some of the employees can park. And then we have 14 spaces along the westerly side for call firemen, et cetera, et cetera. So the intent is the public will enter the easterly driveway and will not have ready access to the back of the building. And there will be no public access allowed from the fire apparatus in front of the fire station. And we have 2 new apparatus bays for an ambulance and the fire truck. So this will be restricted access, and then this bottleneck here will be restricted access. It is designed for 2-way traffic around the building so that a police car can actually exit the westerly or exit the easterly. So all the access aisles are 24 feet wide. Back here is a generator. The facility is served. Well, let me back up to the parking. We did provide a parking calculation using your zoning criteria, and we came up with 19 spaces required. But we are providing, I think it's 36 spaces site-wide, not including inside the garage or inside the sally port, site-wide. And the chiefs have indicated that that should be sufficient for their needs. So going to utilities, there's natural gas out in Main Street, and the building will principally be served, heated and cooled with natural gas. There is a large generator back here, and that will have reserve power that's propane to 2,000 gallon propane tanks that'll run the generator. Sometimes we use a belly tank with oil, but oil is a very fickle, diesel fuel is a fickle fuel. And propane is pretty standard, readily achievable, and isn't as fickle. Right now, this existing outbuilding has a storage trailer behind it. We're going to expand that. 1 storage trailer for the police department, 1 storage trailer for the fire department. So we'll be putting that on a crushed stone base. There's a dumpster located over in this area so that the dumpster truck can come straight in. Get straight access to that, back up and get out. We either go out the easterly drive or not. The front entrance and the sidewalks are completely accessible. So there will be a handicap space and unloading space here, and they'll be able to get straight into the building. By the nature of operations, a police and fire station does not need to be fully accessible for the police and fire staff. But to the extent that we're able to do that, we're making it accessible. We're going to have signage. A permit will be required from Mass DOT for working on Main Street, Route 119, and they're going to mandate what the signage is, but we anticipate no parking signs along the front. The town will be putting in a sign in this general location, but it is not being permitted as part of this project because it's going to be a town installed item. One of the big things that we have on this site back here is an underground 30,000 gallon fire cistern. So what that's going to do is it's going to hold a substantial amount of water, and it's going to flow by gravity to a fire pump system that's located inside the building. So if the sprinklers go off, it's going to have more than 30,000 gallons of water to put out the fire. It is fed only partially from a new on-site well that's going to be drilled. The existing well is somewhere underneath the proposed building, so that we have to drill a new well over here. That well, really, the capacity of that well will only be to take care of evaporation in that tank. It won't be able to fill it because it's only going to be 5 gallons a minute, and that's a 30,000 gallon tank. So what we've done is we've designed the water line to just take care of evaporation, and then the rest of the well will support the building and shouldn't be an issue. The facility's going to have a brand new sewage disposal system. We've already submitted that to the Neshoba Board of Health for review, got review comments, and we sent that back. And we'll be making more applications to the Board of Health relative to earth removal and some of the other things within their jurisdiction. Let's see, what else do I have here? The radio tower will be here, not necessarily part of this project, but we've integrally designed it because it's a significant item, so we know where it's going to go. To talk about stormwater, the state has a criteria that says you shall not discharge stormwater onto a state roadway, even though currently the fire station discharges to a couple catch basins that are located on right at the end of the apparatus bay. So we've designed this drainage system to comply with the DEP stormwater quality standards, which exceed the criteria in your site plan regulations. This westerly part of the site flows to a little basin here, which overflows towards the road. It also gets picked up and drained to a depression that'll be out in front of the public parking space, all of it moving easterly. And then ultimately it moves, I don't know that I can pan. Ultimately, we discharge to a dug ditch over in the northeast corner of the site. That dug ditch drains a little wetland that's to the north of our outlet, but it all drains to the fire pond down by the school. And I'm assuming that this dug ditch, and there's another one to the east, they both drain little pocket wetlands and they all drain towards the school. So historically, somebody pretty clearly dug a ditch to enhance the recharge to the fire pond to the school. There is no hydrant proposed on the site, but because the building is fully sprinkled, they really shouldn't have a need. And if the sprinkler goes off, they will be able to fill this tank up with one of their apparatus going back and forth and filling it. We've submitted to the Conservation Commission and they closed their public hearing last week. So we anticipate an order of conditions for the proposed development. In fact, really the only thing that's within their jurisdiction is the drainage system design and this outfall. That's the 100-foot buffer zone right there. So most of the site alterations are well outside the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. So that's really a descriptor of the site. There's minimal landscape proposed, very much like exists for the fire station. Everything that's disturbed will be planted with grass seed, loam seed, and we have very few trees and shrubs because we want to maintain the open nature and the ready appearance of the police station. While we understand that shading and those kind of things are important, we think that because this is a public safety facility, its openness and its apparent stature and nature and public safety status should be very apparent. We don't want to hide that behind trees and shrubs. And in addition, that's something else that the town has said that they will take a look at in a future phase. So then just getting to a little bit more of the nitty gritty, we have asked for some waivers from your site plan regulations. We've asked for a waiver for the provision of security and performance guarantee. And the reason we asked for that is that's required under state bidding law. The town will get a performance and security bond from the contractor as part of state bidding. So the town will already have that. And that will be in the control of the architect, the town manager, and the OPM, who will all be able to review and assert compliance with that. We've asked for a waiver of filing fees because it is a town project submitted to another town entity. We've asked for a waiver of the review fee deposit. We are working in the best interest of the town. And if you choose to hire a review consultant, that is your purview, but we feel that we have demonstrated compliance with the town standards and criteria that are applicable. And some of the others are pretty meaningless. Location of water resource areas, we show that as an attachment in the application package because we don't really show the entire site. We only show on these plans. We only show the areas of disturbance and we don't show all 34.4 except on the cover sheet. So it's not really clear. The only water resource area is the zone 1 to the elementary school well, which is something like 1,200 feet away. The zone 1 is 1,200 feet away from the site. It does touch a portion of the 34.4 acres. We did not submit as part of the original application a lighting plan, but we have since submitted that and it is in here. There it is. So what the lighting plan simply shows is the intensity of the lighting that's proposed. And most of this lighting is proximal lighting so that you can see up close to the building, but it's still pretty darn dark when you get down to the road so that we're not shining in neighbors' eyes. But we are keeping the area of operation around the building well lit. So when an apparatus comes out at night, they'll have a moderately dark area, which is really what they need to do, acclimate to the darkness and drive off into the project and response. And so that's pretty much it. Tony, would you mind going over current status and bidding process?
Sure. So right now we're working on permitting, as you described, with Conservation Planning Board, Mass DOT. Documents are being finalized, bid performance documents between John McMillan, Keola Bienick, and the town's legal counsel, Copelman and Page. We expect to be out to bid later this month and have final bids in hand around the end of April. That would give the town 30 days that those bids are good in which to secure contracts, get the performance bonds and payment bonds, as you mentioned, Bill, and have a contractor on board and ready to start around the end of May.
And how long for construction?
12 months.
And that's pretty much our presentation. We would be happy to take questions.
Alan, you want to start off?
Okay, yeah, once I figured out how to unmute myself, what I wanted to do was take care of those waivers first, so that if any are not approved, that everybody's aware of it. So I'm going to move that we waive section 1.6, the provision of the security and performance guarantee.
Second.
Alan moved, Jim seconded. Any discussion from the board? All in favor? Terry,
Aye.
Jeannie, I, Jim,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Trisha?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, the second waiver requested is from section 3.4, the filing fee. I'm going to move that we waive the filing fee.
I second.
I think Trisha seconded. She beat you, Jim.
Okay.
Ready to vote? Terry,
Aye.
Jeannie, I, Jim,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Trisha?
Aye.
Thank you.
And the third waiver requested was from section 3.4.1, additional review fee deposits. And I'd ask that this be waived provisionally, presuming nothing comes up in the hearing that would require a review fee.
Second.
Second.
Jim beat you this time, Trisha.
That sounds good.
I think provisional makes sense. Terry?
Aye.
Terry, aye. Jeannie, aye. Jim,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Tricia,
Aye.
thank you.
Okay, the fourth waiver requested is section 4.2, site plan contents. And they're asking that we waive the requirement for the location of water resource protection areas. And the second was the lighting plan. They did submit a lighting plan, so I don't think we need to waive that one. So a waiver from section 4.2, site plan contents, location of water resource protection areas.
Aye.
I
Jim, I was
noticed
waiting
Tricia
on you.
She was staying real quiet on that one.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Terry,
Aye.
Jeannie, aye. Jim,
Aye again.
Alan,
Aye.
Tricia,
Aye.
thank you.
And the fifth and last waiver request was section 6.2 from landscaping.
Mm.
And they've, I guess apparently there is a plan for landscaping.
There is. I can get it.
And so do we need this waiver?
We do because I guess it's referring to parking screening.
Here we go.
And we won't have landscaping to screen the parking, which is,
Right.
well,
And we have about a residential use. They have an existing, over here, they have an existing evergreen hedge. And they're about 200 feet away. So we just have a few street trees along the front so that we are, keeping the intent of the bylaw and some screening back here. But the goal is somebody coming along can readily see that it is a public safety facility and see how to get to it and get in. And we don't want to put street trees along the whole frontage of the site. We just want a little bit. So the bottom of the page is south. So we will be creating some shade to the front of the site, but the landscaping is in fact pretty minimal.
are you removing any trees?
We are, we're removing some trees over here on the tree line.
Sorry, I don't see your cursor.
Okay, on the western side, to the
Okay,
left of the fire station, you
okay,
can see a little cloud line right above the tree that's the farthest left. So we're removing a very small area of those scrubby woods that are over there because we're bringing in our utilities and pushing the parking over in that area. Other than
But
that, no.
okay, so the residents to the east that's within 200 feet, you're not removing any trees along the eastern side, okay.
No, we are not.
Back where the septic system is going to go, I know that's not exactly landscaping, but that's going to have to be treated in some way.
So
I'm assuming
anything,
My
Yep.
memory is that most of the rest of this area would be fields, right?
correct. So everything that's not paved or stabilized with what I call permanent stabilization will be loamed and seeded,
Okay.
and it will be hydroseeded. So we've got a minimum of 6 inches of loam. We require that the loam be tested to meet agricultural standards so that we're not putting too much fertilizer down if it doesn't need it. And then it will be hydroseeded. And we've got 4 different hydroseed blends. We've got manicured lawn. We've got steep slopes, which is a type of grass and ground cover that will grow up but not grow tall. We've got field mix and we've got a basin mix that grows in the bottom of the basin, so that we're keeping the manicured lawn areas pretty much around the building and to the front of the building. And then everything to the sides and to the back will be slope mix, field mix, and then the drainage basin has a very special mix that can take inundation and drying out and inundation and drying out.
I was wondering about in the pollinators and doing something
Natural.
with a non-manicured area that would encourage insect well-being. And I was thinking about milkweed and butterfly weed and some of the plants that bring bugs and butterflies. Is that something that is feasible, reasonable, or possible?
It is, a lot of that back area, I was just looking to see if I had that seed mix on there. A lot of that back
You do have a
area-
wildflower mix actually on there, I think.
Well, I'm a beekeeper, so I'm very much into that anyway. Yeah, the slope mix will be it has things like crown vetch, which is a legume that has amazing amount of flowers.
Yeah.
And it becomes very dense. And the beauty of it is you mow it once a year, weed whack it or something along those lines. So that's our slope mix. Yeah, here we go. The conservation mix is got white clover and Ladino clover. Here's the wildflower mix by New England Wetland Plants for other areas of the site. So we specify those things already as part of the overall project.
Great. Thank you. And I guess the milkweed will just arrive on its own, right?
Yeah, it's not a big slope plant and it might grow in the field, but if they mow it or they hay it, you're going to lose the milkweed will be intermittent as it is today.
Yeah. The area directly over the septic, that gets treated somewhat differently. Am I right or not?
No, grass,
Okay.
meadow.
Okay.
It'll look like a helicopter landing pad, but we really, the only thing we can't allow is any kind of shrubbery to grow there, or we don't want any kind of shrubbery to go there. We don't want trees, we don't want shrubs, we want it to be mowed on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Does this layout allow for helicopter landing still?
It doesn't prohibit it, but it doesn't encourage it either. So I've been doing public safety facilities for a very long time. And the criteria for a formal landing space would mean that we'd have to start looking at stabilized surfaces and access routes and things like that. It's a good question, but the short answer is no, it doesn't formally accommodate it. But it leads me to a point that I should have made earlier, is one of the design criteria that we were given, our easterly driveway is capable of going straight back because the town owns, I mean, we're disturbing such a small footprint. We're disturbing something like 3.3% of the entire 34-acre site, and the town owns a parcel behind that's as big. So this design enables the town to extend a driveway to the remaining backland for future use. So if the town decides it wants a different building or a playfields or something back there, this design won't prohibit that kind of construction in the future.
So currently, my understanding is that we can have, med flight land at the site. Do we have similar sufficient flat area in which, in an emergency, that could occur? Do we know, or I don't know. Maybe that's a question for fire and EMS.
Yeah, I defer that to the chief. I don't know the answer. The short answer is yes, but we do, because we're doing something called country drainage, and you guys can't see my cursor, which is kind of too bad. We have a grass. Yeah.
Bill? Sorry to interrupt. Chief Bustle is on if you want him to address that.
I would like Chief Bustle to address that.
There you go.
Hey, hi, good evening, just waiting my turn.
Thanks, Mike.
Once we see the build out of the area, there should be plenty of space for the helicopter to land. They don't really take up a lot of area and there's sufficient clearing. They always worry about the tree line and everything. So once we're done with this, what we do is they come out and they actually GPS the site, because they land using all the technology nowadays. So we will be able to hopefully find a spot that we will be able to land a helicopter, but we gotta kind of let this build itself out before we try to place that particular spot at this time. So, but I feel we should be able to, especially where it doesn't really take up a big space, believe it or not, to do it.
So ultimately, is it their decision as to whether or not they are comfortable doing it? Is that correct?
Some of that will be at the end. That's why we'll introduce them to the finished site, and they will help us probably locate a spot that would be sufficient for them to be able to land.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
So I think we have a motion to waive the. I think we
Well,
have about it or no?
yeah, we were looking at the landscape plan waiver request. And the request, and correct me if I'm wrong, is really to modify some of the requirements in the regulations so that you're not screening parking and so forth. Is that correct?
That is.
So the way I'm thinking is this doesn't need to be waived, that if the plan is approved with the landscaping as shown, then it would be approved that way. And if the board wanted to require something different, they would express that. So I don't think we need to waive the landscaping section. Anyone disagree?
I don't know, Alan. I'm going back to section 6.2 to see what it says.
Oy, I guess you're not that sick.
Not sick, just in pain.
Oh.
We got any music?
Yeah, Alan, I think I agree with you. I don't think they need to waive that one. Because it just says it shall be suitably landscaped.
So is everybody in agreement with that? We'll just let that ride.
Works for me.
That's fine.
Or are you waiving, or are you asking for a waiver of the percentage?
Yes.
Oh, the 5%. What is the percentage of landscaping that you have now for the parking lot?
Oh. Less than 5%.
Okay, so then you need the waiver.
Okay, Tricia, so can you make the motion what we're specifically waiving?
Sure. Well, okay, so do we need them to modify their waiver request?
Well, it's whatever you move.
Tricia, I think what you can do is ask them, tell them what we will waive.
Well, so yeah, so we need to waive section 6.2.4 regarding such landscaped areas shall not be less in area than 5% of the total area of the parking lot, et cetera, et cetera. My quandary here is that section 1.5.2 talks about that the waivers need to be in written request form. Can I just modify their waiver request?
Oh, yeah, certainly. Yeah.
Okay, so I move to approve the waiver request to the requirement to have 5% of the total area of parking landscape be total 5% of the total area of the parking lot.
Second.
Ready to vote, Terry?
Actually, can you just repeat that one more time, just for me to grab it? Trish?
Sure. So regarding section 6.2.4
Mhm.
of the rules and regulations, I move to allow a waiver to less than 5% of the total area of the parking lot regarding landscaped areas.
Okay. Aye.
Oh, sorry, Jim.
Aye.
Jeannie, aye. Alan,
Aye.
Tricia,
Aye.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is the
Have-
is the park, sorry, is the parking lot paved? Is the whole parking lot paved?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
there we go.
So I,
Yes, everything's paved. When we came in front of you in November, opposite the spaces on the easterly side, we were gonna have some overflow reinforced grass pavers, but that got taken out of the project because it was just too expensive and it wasn't needed.
Okay.
so I think we've reached the stage where planning board members can ask any questions.
Well, hold on.
Okay,
Sorry. As long as we're on waivers, Bill, correct? Is that,
Correct.
am I, okay. So this is a question for you. Do you need any additional waivers, do you think?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, because I think you do.
Okay,
So section 6.1 of the rules and regulations talks about stormwater. Specifically, it talks about our requirement, which is, our requirement is that we need,
Same.
we need AutoCAD run at a 25-year design storm, which is obviously not consistent with Mass DEP stormwater standards, which you ran at the 2-year, the 10-year, and the 100-year. So I think we need a waiver to this.
I read your regulations as a 10-year storm.
Terry, can you pull up the,
So I've got it here, Bill. It's 6.1 stormwater runoff. For all sites, the peak rate of stormwater runoff from the development shall not exceed the rate existing prior to new construction based on a 25-year design storm.
Okay. I saw 10-year in your regulations. My bad.
that's okay. So what I think we need you to do is we need you to just submit a waiver to section 6.1.
Okay.
for us to accept the 2, the 10, and the 100-year.
Or I can have my engineers run the 25 and give you the results of that.
Whichever is easier for you.
Well, writing the letter's easier.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I see no reason why they would need to run the 25-year design storm. I mean, the 2, the 10, and the 100 are pretty consistent with, it's consistent with the Mass stormwater standards, right? So
Right.
That's sufficient. I don't know why we would require something beyond what Mass DEP requires.
Okay. I will do that.
Great.
anything else, Trish?
I didn't know. Yeah, that's it for waivers.
Okay, thank you. So this is the moment then the board can ask any questions. I didn't say it clearly in the beginning, so I'll just remind us that our general scope is traffic, drainage, lighting, public health and safety, impact on municipal services.
And we did submit a pretty comprehensive project narrative to address each and every one of those items.
You did, actually. Thank you. Why don't we stop the sharing? And then I can see everybody on the screen because we can open this up to community questions.
Well, I've got a few questions, Judy.
Oh, I didn't hear you.
Well,
I do too, Jeannie.
Okay, then I'm not opening it up to the community. Sorry. Planning board may ask some questions. Alan, Tricia, go for it.
Alan, you can go first.
Okay, the first question, you said you were going to end up with an excess of 3,800 cubic yards of soil material.
Yeah.
Do you have a location where you're going to, you said you'd
Yeah,
spread it?
Thank you for mentioning that. So that has changed since we submitted to you. The building committee originally told us that we were going to keep it on site and spread it. And that material, by the way, does not include loam. That we'll get to loam in a bit. But now the town will, it's in the contract documents that the town will receive that material at the DPW. And the contractor will haul the surplus unrequired material to the DPW where they will process it and use it in various fashions. Likewise, loam is a very valuable item, and we don't allow the contractor to remove the loam until we have determined that what is remaining on the site is in fact surplus to need. I don't want a guy hauling loam off the site and then buying loam to bring it back on the site. But the same deal is going on with the loam. If there is surplus loam, and we'll be able to determine that pretty quickly, we know the square footage of disturbance. That will also be hauled by the contractor as part of the base bid to the DPW yard, where they're going to get it screened, and the town's gonna utilize the material in the way that they choose to do it. So that is a change since we submitted the plan, and we modified that in front of the Conservation Commission as well.
So all excess soil materials will be hauled to the DPW.
All excess clean soil materials. If there's debris or any of that, that will be hauled away as unsuitable materials.
Okay.
And likewise, fill, we're gonna have to have some specialized fill, structural fill, those kind of things. All of that has to be virgin material. We don't allow them to man-make those kind of materials. So they'll be coming from clean pits, and that will be hauled into the site. And
Yeah, you've got some coming in.
Yep.
Okay, one thing I wanted to mention, and I forgot to, I should have mentioned it first, when you mentioned the zoning district as being the residential commercial. Part of the property is in residential commercial and part is in residential agricultural, just like part is in the village overlay district. The residential commercial is the same on that side of the street as the village overlay district.
right.
So I think that the portion you're building in is actually in residential agricultural. I don't see that actually affects the application. Let's see.
Right, it's an allowed use in all zoning districts.
Yeah. So the other one was about parking spaces. I think you answered that. You said you'd be providing 36 instead of the 19 minimal.
Right.
Alan, quick question for you on that. Do they need anything for the additional spaces, or do we just stipulate the minimum?
Well, what they used is our requirements to calculate the minimum. But it's a unique use in that you got the volunteer fire department and you need a bunch of additional spaces for the volunteers when they respond to a call.
But we
So-
don't specifically need to approve the additional spaces above the calculated number?
No, I think those are minimal.
Okay,
The
Okay, thank you.
minimum spaces required.
okay, thanks.
Let's see, and you filed with the Conservation Commission, and that's in process apparently. The other question I had was signage on Main Street. The police station is currently located in a place where it's completely not obvious.
Right.
And over the years, we've had a couple incidences with patrol cars entering Main Street. And I think there's been a couple of collisions over the years. I just wondered if there were going to be any signage on Main Street warning ordinary traffic that they're approaching.
Yep.
fire station, police station complex.
It's, so it's defined through Mass DOT. It's called the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, MUTCD. So 400 feet in the easterly direction and 400 feet in the westerly direction, there will be those diamond-shaped warning signs. One will have a fire truck on it, and the other will have a police car on it. It's a pictograph, so it doesn't actually say fire station ahead. It simply shows a fire truck and a police truck in both directions. So Mass DOT is where we have submitted to them, and they're going to, I don't know if they're going to require, but we're going to specify that those be installed 400 feet on either side, not on utility poles, but on standard Mass DOT poles to warn of the presence of the police station and the fire station ahead.
Okay, so it'll just be signage. There'll be no lit signs or
Right.
signals or anything. Okay.
So the town in the future wants to do a message board sign that says public safety facility and then can do public service announcements, but that's not part of the application that we're making to you. The town's going to pursue that at a future date.
Okay. Then I wanted to move on to drainage. And drainage area 16S has the long pipe that drains to the north.
Mm.
And could you talk about the inlet for that pipe, the diameter of the pipe and the discharge?
So you're talking this system that flows to the outfall up here.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is a, we have a subdrain because first off, the drainage system design assumes that groundwater is 2 to 3 feet below finished grade because we did soil testing pretty much across the whole site. And that's the soils that you have out there have seasonally high perched water tables. So the drainage basins are big and flat. They're not these deep holes. They're big and flat because we have to just assume that we really can't recharge. So we have a drainage outlet structure. Let's see if I can find that. Nope. Oh. That didn't do it. My Zoom controls are blocking my access. There we go. Nope. Keep doing that. That's the lighting. There we go. All right, what sheet am I on? So it is it's this structure right here. The stormwater outlet structure. So it has a subdrain, and the requirement of the stormwater regulations say that the basin has to drain dry within 72 hours. So we have a subdrain in there. It's got a plastic ball valve so we can close it off if for some reason we need to. It has a 12-inch outlet and then a landscape catch basin. Even though it shows a flat basin, it's got a landscape catch basin, which is a beehive on the top. And I don't honestly recall what the perforations are, but I think they're 4-inch diameter staggered perforations on the side of the structure. So we're slowly letting, as the water builds up, it goes through a 4-inch hole to the outlet pipe, which is 12-inch PVC, HDPE. And then there's another orifice, and then there's another orifice. So as the water builds up, we take more water out because that's what happens during bigger storms. You want to discharge. So that's what that structure is. The drainage design, I'm gonna go up. That's my grading plan. I went a little too far. Okay. No. I apologize. My computer wants to bounce it all over the place. Okay. So we have a swale behind the facility that picks up the surface water. So again, we're doing the country drainage. We're trying not to do a whole lot of catch basins. The front parking lot drains to a ditch in the front, which then flows to the east. And we have two basins. We have basin one, which catches roof drainage and the majority of the back of the site. It captures it, and then it flows from an inlet pipe to the second basin, which has a constructed wetland. And what the constructed wetland does is it polishes the runoff. The second basin also picks up the front of the site, the front parking lot, and some of the apparatus space, because we have slot drains right at the right-of-way line to pick up the sheet flow and then direct it to our basins. And then ultimately it flows out and down. So the stormwater system that we have has 4 bays, and the way we've designed this is it exceeds the DEP standards for treating runoff prior to discharge, because ultimately it discharges to Trap Fall Brook, and Trap Fall Brook is considered an outstanding resource water, even though the fire pond and the parking lot from the school drains to the fire pond. So what under the DEP water quality standards, you treat for something called total suspended solids, and they have a criteria for retention time and how much water gets to it. And that criteria is normally based on a ½ inch of water hits the impervious area of the site and discharges to the basin. For an outstanding resource water, we double that and we say 1 inch of water hits the site, and that water is allowed to slowly drain into the basins through what we call armored dike, which is essentially just a stone-filled weir or a stone-filled berm. So we capture all those total suspended solids, which actually therefore capture an awful lot of the heavy metals, the sediments, and things like that, to treat the water. And the constructed wetland then picks up nutrients and captures even more bad things, heavy metals and things like that, before the discharge goes all the way out. So we exceed the DEP stormwater standards for discharge to a sensitive area with this drainage system design.
Okay, and that constructed wetland is in the drainage area right at the front of the property on the eastern side?
Yeah. And you see those all the time. It's going to be cattails. A lot of things will naturalize, but we're going to introduce there are plants that can take drying out and then being fully inundated. Their roots capture and filter a lot, and every few years you're going to need to go in and cut them down to 10, 12 inches in height and get rid of the greenery, because that's your captured nutrient load and you want to make it go away. And that can go, ideally that should be composted and used somewhere else.
Okay, and I noticed in your drainage structure drawing, there appeared to be no sump to that drainage structure. So I presume all the solids have been taken out by the time the water reaches the structure?
Yeah, we've really polished the water by the time it reaches that outlet structure. The answer is yes.
Okay.
It is the actual outlet structure is not part of the treatment train. It's simply a hydraulic conveyance. So there's no credit for it.
Okay. And is that on this plan, is that the property line you're showing right next to the drainage there?
Yeah, the big black line to the right. Yes.
The big black line.
Yep.
Okay. And so are you going to be disturbing those trees that run along the property line there?
We aren't, no, the grading goes within about 4 feet of them, of the drip edge. But no, we're not gonna be disturbing those trees at all.
Okay. And then one question in your post-development analysis, point 1, you increased the 100-year storm runoff by 1.1 cubic feet per second.
Yes, so the standard is that you shall not contribute to downstream flooding. And with those kind of flows, that's what we consider de minimis. It's within the accuracy of our ability to calculate for the 100-year storm. So we're not, we're number one, we're allowed to do that. Number two, we're not that accurate in our calculations to be able to say within 1 CFS that this is what will happen. So that's why we don't really see a red flag from that.
Well, what I'm hearing you say is it could be better or it could be worse.
Yeah, although we've taken some pretty conservative design assumptions in preparing this. So the likelihood is it will be better because we assume in the design of this drainage system that there is no recharge to the local groundwater table. And even though groundwater is shallow, there's going to be some recharge, but we just assume that there is not. So a lot of our assumptions are pretty on the conservative side for the drainage system design.
Yeah, my concern was that's draining, directly onto municipal property and the potential for increasing the flooding in that area and in the center of town.
Well, 1 CFS is considering the tributary area to that pocket wetland is probably 8 or 9 acres, and it flows through that stream. The 1 CFS, when it blends in, is not. It's not statistically even probably within a percentage.
Okay, so you think it's tiny compared to the total drainage into that wetland?
Right. And I honestly think that our flows will be less than what we calculated, and you probably it won't actually materialize, but we're not going to play with the numbers. We're just going to make sure that we represent so another engineer can review it and say that that's a reasonable thing to do.
Okay, and one thing I noticed in the overall plan was this system's going to require some maintenance.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what assurance we can get from the owner that it will actually be maintained, given the town's history on maintenance.
Well, I can tell you that that was a big topic of conversation with the Conservation Commission as well. Under the DEP stormwater standards, we're required to submit this drainage system operation and maintenance plan. And the maintenance really isn't that burdensome because we are doing the country drainage, but you do have to clean catch basins. We have 4 bays, which are essentially silt collection devices at the front of the basin. And we like drainage basins better than below grade recharge systems because you can see when they're starting to fill up and fail, as opposed to somebody trying to recharge and then it just disappears from mind's eye and sight. But the short answer is it is a requirement of the DEP stormwater quality standards, and the Conservation Commission was also concerned about that. And I'm quite sure that they're going to make a maintenance provision in their orders. And I have no issue, and I would encourage the planning board to put something in your conditions, because the only way this thing functions as designed is if it's maintained on a regular basis. And that's all spelled out on this plan. What the frequency is, what you need to do, and those kind of things.
Okay, if I could just pursue that a little further, if the fire chief and the police chief are on board, I mean, essentially, it's going to be their budgets that are going to look at the maintenance, if they could address that question.
Hi, it's Mike Bussell. well, not knowing what that maintenance really is and what it costs, it would be something we would have to propose to the town to put into someone's budget. And I would assume it would probably be the highway doing the work. So would have to have conversations with, all parties that are involved. And any type of maintenance, because I haven't read that, any of that maintenance that's recommended for this system.
Well,
Yeah,
maintenance,
I'm
I'm
sorry,
sorry.
go ahead, Bill.
well, the maintenance is when the forebays silt up, when they reach to a depth of 12 to 18 inches, they need to be cleaned out, and usually do that with a backhoe. The drainage basins need to be mowed at least twice a year to keep trees and shrubs from growing in them and then undermining the berms. And as I said, probably once a year, somebody's going to come in and chop down the constructed wetlands. We have a couple of catch basins that will have to be cleaned on a regular basis. So it's not that burdensome. We are going to have to file with the federal government for a SWIP, which is a stormwater pollution prevention plan, which is going to have even more specific requirements for maintenance in it. And because we're tributary to Trapfall Brook, we're also going to be filing with the Mass DEP for a stormwater permit as well. And all of those, they're the same filings for the EPA and the DEP, but they all, again, have a book that says this is what you need to do. And that book is a little bit more specific than even this plan.
Okay, that's all I have.
Just a quick question, Alan, you'd mentioned with it being an RA, there's no impact, right? As opposed to RC from what I saw.
No, I don't believe there's any change.
Okay.
Or
I
any.
think the only thing that I saw was something about a landscape buffer, but I think we're fine there. Lighting, we're good. Signage, you had mentioned, Bill, signage for traffic, for warning oncoming traffic. Was there, I might have missed it, was there signage specific to the police station, any lit or?
So here are our sign legend. I probably should have pulled that up before. Here are the pictographs. That's
Yep.
the fire station ahead and the police station ahead.
Mhm.
They reference the federal standard. These are so they will be yellow diamond signs with black images.
Yeah. So those are the traffic ones. Okay.
Yep. And then most of the other signage here that I have, of course, are the traffic relating signs.
Okay.
The only other formal signage that we have, I'm trying to get to the architectural plans now. Is building mounted.
Okay.
Here we go. And
Okay.
there it is there.
That's it. Okay.
So we're making, we're putting conduit out to the front lawn area between the public parking and the apparatus bay for the fire station. And that conduit will probably pull wire. And the goal is for the town to undertake a message board that will also say public safety facility. But that's going to be undertaken by the town. That's not part of the construction
Okay.
project.
Okay. No, that sounds good. And that's it for me for signage. The two ways in are both entrance and exits, right? And one is not an entrance, the other is an exit.
Yeah, so they are in fact both entry and exit,
Exit.
but the fire apparatus one will have signs authorized entry only.
Okay.
So the goal is we don't want anybody that's not supposed to be responding to a fire incident coming into the site. So we know that call firemen will be looking for apparatus exiting and responding to a scene, and they'll take the appropriate care. But we don't want the general public anywhere near the apparatus. So that's got two signs And if you want, I'll try and get to those signs again. 5 sheets up. No, okay. Here we go.
Okay.
So it's the standard do not
Okay.
enter,
Okay.
and then it has a plaque underneath, authorized vehicles only. So that's the red and white sign, do not enter with black text, and then authorized vehicles only. And that will be at the apparatus right at the junction with Main Street.
Mhm.
And then it will be at the choke point just to the north of the easterly driveway. So that's police officers and firemen or whoever has the reasonable and responsible reason to be behind the station.
Okay.
Ideally, the civilians should only be in that front parking lot in that front easterly driveway. And everybody behind the building has a reason to be there.
Is that for the entrance for the police side, not into the quote unquote private area, but the main entrance off the street? Is that a two vehicle wide, or
Yeah,
is it just
it's 24 feet wide.
24
with
feet?
30-foot radiuses.
Okay.
Mass DOT just made us increase the size of the radii.
I'm thinking of all those lovely people that are going to do U-turns.
Yeah.
So, okay. And let's see. Lighting, it looks like you covered sufficiently. I'm fine on the lighting plans. Okay, I think those were my main questions because you covered, we're not building on the overlay district side, so I think we're fine there.
Yep.
That's it. Okay.
Tricia?
Okay, so bear with me. My questions are a little bit all over the place. I didn't condense them by topic, so bear with me here. The walkways, are they paved pathways, paved walkways or gravel?
They're concrete.
Concrete, okay. And I'm assuming it meets ADA standards?
It does.
Okay. Just for planning board members, 634 specifically says we need to approve the walkway treatments. I don't know if we need to discuss that at a later date, but just so we keep that in mind. With respect to storm water, so you ran the HydroCAD model for the 2, the 10, and the 100-year storms. You mentioned that the site plan currently does not include a garage, but there is the potential for a garage to be included pending budget.
Yeah.
Was the garage, so, and if the garage is not included, then that area would be grass. Was the
Right.
garage included was the garage included in the model, or
Yes.
was grass included in the model?
The garage.
The grass was? So if we added
No, the garage.
Oh, the garage. Okay, so the
Yeah.
garage was,
We,
okay.
we designed for the full build, and if it doesn't happen, then the drainage system will work better.
Okay, all right, great. How about, and then you mentioned a carport. So, but I guess
Mhm.
that actually wouldn't change because that area is already impervious. So the carport doesn't really matter. Okay.
Right.
All right, great. We talked about 25-year storm. Sorry, I'm just flipping through all my notes here. There was a lot to go through.
Yeah, it was a lot to pull together.
Okay, so if you go to the narrative on page 4 of 14 of the stormwater analysis, the first paragraph, there's something missing, and I'm assuming that was meant to say there is also a sediment forebay, or is there something else that needed to go there?
What number?
Page 4 of 14, narrative proposed conditions, paragraph 1.
Page 4.
In the drainage report.
Yeah, the stormwater analysis.
Oh, the stormwater, not the
Oh, sorry. Yeah, stormwater analysis.
414. There it is. Proposed conditions. There is also a. Well, it does say sediment forebay, constructed wetland and detention basin, so I think that's the only thing that's missing. BMP's utilized down
Yeah,
below.
okay. Okay, so it is the sediment forebay. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So we're expanding the fire building, the fire station building, and we're removing one building.
We are removing a little outbuilding, yeah.
Okay, but I think it was noted that there was actually 3 buildings. So what's happening with the 3rd building?
So can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay, so the existing fire station is remaining and just being slightly upgraded. Directly behind it is a garage building that's remaining. And there was where we show well, to the left of that, there was a outbuilding that's concrete block that the town is going to remove independently. And then we're simply adding the new building on. So there will be 3 built. If you consider it 3 buildings, it's actually 2 buildings now, the new addition and the existing fire station and the outbuilding behind the fire station, which currently houses some fire apparatus. And that's
Okay.
staying.
Okay, great. Thank you. Alan asked the question about 1.1 increase. So the land uses with higher pollutant load, is this not, this is not a land use with higher pollutant load, is that correct?
It is not. Yep.
It is not. Okay.
We don't have enough. So a LUPL is land use with higher pollution potential load. Easier to say LUPL is a trucking terminal, a truck repair facility, very large parking lot, a transit lot, anything with a high volume of vehicular traffic. And we, of course, don't even meet 50 vehicle trips a day out of this project. We're not a trucking facility. And to address water quality, something I did not mention, because apparatus is going to be stored inside a building. Currently, what happens is there's a floor drain inside the fire station, which goes to a dry well, which discharges to the local groundwater table. And that's not allowed. What will happen here is we're going to have floor drains again, but it's going to go to a sand, oil, grit separator, and then it's going to go to a tight tank. So anything that falls on the floor inside the building where any of the vehicles can be. So it would be the fleet garage for the fire station, the apparatus bays. It would be the sally port for the police station and the 2 new garage bays. All of the floor drains there go to a tight tank, and the tight tank captures that water and holds onto it, and then it gets pumped by a septic hauler and hauled to a wastewater treatment plant because it's considered non-hazardous industrial waste. So we're going to do a dramatic improvement on the impact of the localized groundwater table by doing that. But no, we're not a land use with higher pollution potential. And, if a fire truck is leaking, it's going to leak inside the building, and it's going to then be captured by this containment system. And if
Okay.
it's leaking, I presume that the chief will immediately get that fixed. In addition, maintenance won't be conducted inside any of these buildings on any of the vehicles.
Okay. So you meant, how many trucks do you anticipate during construction, and what's the length of construction?
It's 12 months. And I can't really tell you how many trucks. Usually on a project of this size, they'll have 5 or 6 dump trucks hauling surplus materials out when they get into it, and they will be doing a continuous circle route. They'll load the truck will go to the DPW, they'll dump it, the guy will come back, and by that time another truck has been filled, and they'll do a circle route. So it'll be anywhere probably from 3 to 5 trucks hauling. And then of course you're going to have a lot of the construction workers in their private vehicles. And that will be a mandate on the general contractor to produce a staging area where they can safely park their cars and not, excuse me, and not impact the neighbors or anybody else. They're absolutely not going to be allowed to park on Main Street because the Mass DOT won't allow that. So the contractor is probably going to have to develop a staging area for the construction vehicles, and none of the construction vehicles are going to be allowed within 100 feet of the wetlands. None of the construction vehicles can stage on the septic system area, and they cannot stage inside the drainage basin because we don't want them compacting the soils. And all of that's in the bid spec. It's spelled out that they cannot use those areas. So the contractor is going to have to make sure he adheres to those requirements and works his way around. He's going to have a little bit of a challenge because the fire station will remain in operation throughout all phases of this construction. There may be a couple of weeks, and the chief can probably address that better, where the fire department during good weather can move out if they're going to do some interior changes, but that fire station is going to remain active throughout the majority of all of the construction.
Right. Have you met with Mass DOT, and are they going to require any specific TMPs during construction?
TMP?
Traffic management plan, or traffic management measures?
I have submitted to Mass DOT, and they have given us review comments. As a matter of fact, I'll be out on the site doing site distance measurements tomorrow. And we do have a traffic mitigation plan submitted to them, but we're only doing shoulder work. And the only work that we're doing is saw cutting to make our easterly driveway connection, and then saw cutting to do our gas line connection. So we're only on a shoulder. So the traffic management plan is pretty straightforward. The contractor was going to have to pay for a police detail, and for the short period of time, and we've mandated it's no more than 5 days, holidays and weekends excluded, they have to complete all their work in the mass highway layout. So we'll have a police detail. Hopefully it'll only be a day or two. And they'll probably have a half lane closure. But the answer to the question is yes, we have submitted to Mass DOT a traffic management plan.
Okay. All right. Okay, we talked about inspection of the stormwater basins. What kind of warranty are we asking of the contractor with respect to the stormwater system, if any?
Yeah, no, there is a warranty, which is really, we are requiring that the contractor hire a land surveyor, and that the land surveyor give us an as-built plan of the storm at the entire site, not just the stormwater. But they give us an as-built plan of the entire site, as-built, stamped by the PLS. And that way we can, what my office will do when we submit to the Conservation Commission is we'll take that information developed by somebody else, and we'll run it through our HydroCAD model to make sure that it works as designed. And if it doesn't work as designed, as both Tony DeLuzio and John McMillan can tell you, We just did a project in West Boylston where they did not do it properly, and we had to, at the very, very end of the project, they had to dig it up and do it again because we weren't going to sign off on it. So unless it meets reasonable construction tolerances, we're obligated to certify that what they built meets what we designed under the Wetlands Protection Act and the Stormwater Quality Standards. And if you want to add a criteria as part of the site plan, that's fine too. So we will be running our model through another person's certified survey before we ask the Conservation Commission to sign off and release us from their permit requirements.
Okay. So you mentioned that the groundwater table is about 2 to 3 below existing contours.
Yeah, it's very
conditions.
shallow.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what are your plans for dewatering, or are you leaving that up to the contractor?
No, the dewatering is specified in the documents, and we give the contractor, number one, we give them copies of all the test holes. And we have I think it's a 36-page earthwork specification. And we tell the contractor that groundwater will be shallow during part of the year, and he is responsible for dewatering. And then if you look at our stormwater maintenance plan, if I can get to that, we have details for, that's up. Yep. Dewatering is covered here. The existing catch basins on Main Street are going to have what's called silt sacks. It's an insert. It's like an erosion control fabric that doesn't allow silt to get by. We have a temporary dewatering area, and we show him or her exactly how to do it and some other mechanisms that they have to utilize to do dewatering. So what they're probably going to do, we also have a third option that's not on the plan, but we refer to it. And it's called a silt bag. So when they're over by Main Street and there's no place to discharge to, because they certainly can't discharge, silty water to Main Street, you pump it into the silt bag, which is a glorified filter box. And it filters the water. It comes out, what goes in is cloudy, what comes out is clean, and that just runs down the street like any other runoff. So we've accommodated the dewatering, and we've given the contractor fair notice that groundwater is going to be shallow. We've given them fair notice that the soils are what are known as Paxton fine sandy loam, which, by the way, is the state soil. And it's going to be very hard to work when it's wet. So yes, we do put the onus on the contractor because he's responsible for means and methods. But yes, we give him a performance specification that he has to adhere to.
Okay. Did you say that you had a specific place where dewatering will be directed or discharged?
No.
No. Okay.
But
that will be in your SWIP.
It will be in the SWIP, and it can't be directly directed to the wetlands. It has to. No. The short story is no silt-laden water is allowed to leave the site. Water is allowed to leave the site, but silt-laden water has to be filtered before it's allowed to leave the site.
Okay. So you mentioned that there'd be no vehicle maintenance in the buildings, but would there be, but does that include changing any fluids, would there be any vehicle washing on the site?
Vehicle washing, yes, because and I'll let the fire chief talk about maintenance, but vehicle washing, yes, because when they come back from a fire scene or a car accident or whatever, the silt and other things adhere to the apparatus, and that stuff is sometimes hazardous. So it must be rinsed off the vehicle. What it'll do, it'll rinse off the vehicle inside and go into the floor drain holding tanks, and that's where it will stay until it's pumped out. They may do, clean washing out front like many fire departments do, just to rinse off a vehicle not in response, but certainly not after a hazmat scene. I can't address what minor maintenance they will do. I'm going to guess they'll fill their windshield fluids and do some of those normal activities, but oil changes and major heavy maintenance and repair. Chief Bustle, can you address that?
All right, on that type of the light maintenance, we do a lot of it in-house, so we currently do some oil changes on some of the vehicles.
Okay.
We have, and we were planning on to continue that because it helps with our maintenance costs.
You're going to capture that though and contain it?
That's what we do. We capture it, recycle it back to the place that we purchase it, and we've been doing that right along, and but the thought was to continue that. Any of the large vehicle repairs are sent out to a third party. We're currently working on hopefully an in-house maintenance program with the DPW, but that's still in its infancy. So I can't comment further because we really haven't even got that off the ground yet. But yeah, nothing more than the everyday maintenance, we call it, because changing the oil is not a big job. You know, it takes some time, but all the precautions are always in place, and the process is no different than if you sent it out to a place to have the oil changed. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Yep.
So Bill, we talked a little bit about the maintenance, and we talked about, having discussions by the town and DPW doing the maintenance. So I'm assuming that there's no requirement, no specific qualifications for the maintenance.
Well, the maintenance, the SWIP and this maintenance plan that we have in front of you outline how often and what the triggers are that require maintenance. But cleaning out a catch basin requires a catch basin, either clamshell or a vacuum. Cleaning out the silt out of a forebay requires a backhoe to get a foot or so of silt out of the forebay. They don't really need to reseed it. It will take care of that itself, or it will silt up again. So there really isn't a whole lot of high tech here purposefully. We try to keep it as low tech as we can. Cutting the lawn in the basin and cutting down the constructed wetland plants every year or 2 years is not, a weed whacker will do it. So there's nothing high tech involved in the maintenance, and as long as somebody's eyes work, the triggers are pretty apparent.
Okay, thank you. All right, so sorry, just trying to find my next question.
Okay.
Jeannie, do you have any questions? Do you want to jump in while I'm looking?
No, I don't have questions, but while you're looking, I'll just update people. For those of you who are still waiting to speak, I think that we'll continue this hearing until we're done, and the planning board has other business, and I'm going to propose that we have a special meeting next week to deal with that business, because I, for one, am not going to have any energy to deal with a floodplain bylaw.
I second your unspoken motion.
All right, so just rest assured, folks, that we'll have space for the public to comment tonight. And we will hopefully make it through this hearing and close it tonight. And we will meet in next week for deliberations, decision, and the rest of our agenda tonight.
So I will leave it there. I will close out my questions with that.
Are you sure, Tricia? Because
yeah,
once we close the hearing, you can't, I mean.
So I do have like one or two comments, but maybe we should hear the comments from the public.
Okay. Yeah. Wayne, did you have any questions that you wanted to ask Mr. Associate Member? Or Jim?
No, I'm all set. There's been a lot of questions.
This is your idea of a great night, Jim. I know that.
It is, it is.
A lot of very good questions.
I do have one quick question.
Sure.
The handicap parking spot it's just one spot, correct?
Yeah.
By
It
the
is.
door.
One spot and one unloading spot.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so wide enough for the unloading area. Okay, not a fake.
There it is.
Okay. And it's a level, you step out of the vehicle, it's level. Is there, oh, you do have a ramp?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Right, because it's the building is slightly higher than, yeah, okay.
We have, the ramps go up on either side to catch the sidewalk. So we have a 6-inch curb where the cars face, et cetera, et cetera. But that's a level landing, and we specify in our grading plan. Where is my grading plan? There we go. So you see that gray hatched area?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a note on this plan that says that gray hatched area, no slope shall be in excess of 2% in any direction on a level landing or in the parking areas. And then the walk that goes to the front door, it shall have no longitudinal slope, cross slope of greater than 2%. And the path of travel shall be no greater than 5%. And then you can see I have spot grades that give them extremely detailed guidance as to what the elevations need to be for that accessible route and parking area.
Okay. And is that mostly limited to the front of the building? Because you said as a public safety facility, it doesn't necessarily require accessibility around. I know you said that there is some accessibility, but could somebody?
So our sidewalks, nowhere do our sidewalks exceed 5% or have a cross slope greater than 2%. But in order to be a fireman or a policeman, you can't have mobility disabilities. So that's why the back of the house doesn't necessarily have to comply with those standards, but absolutely the front of the house where the public has the right to get into the building, that has to comply.
Okay, and they're restricted anyway from going.
Right, and the back of the house is semi-secure, so people shouldn't, unless they're escorted, they shouldn't be back there.
Okay.
Yes, Terry, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Sorry about that.
Yeah, well, Bill was explaining, but there's also the funding mechanism for this building will be a low-interest loan from the U.S. Department of Agriculture Rural Development Division, which requires federal compliance with ADA. So in the back of the building, we do have accessible exits and entrances. You can see just behind the fire station, we actually have a ramp coming from the new addition.
Okay.
And so we do have accessibility in other areas of this building because the federal government doesn't recognize that a fireman or a policeman could be temporarily disabled and on desk duty or somewhere else, and they still need accessible elements. So we do comply with that.
Is that the, not necessarily that the police vehicles are fitted for somebody in a wheelchair, but is a Sally port also, I'm assuming, in compliance?
It is.
Yeah, you could take a handicapped prisoner from a cruiser from the back seat, and you could take them through the facility in a wheelchair.
Okay. All right. That answers that question. And on a completely different note, just the last question on the landscaping piece. I was going back to the full list that you had for landscaping materials, the wild seeds, etc. Where the sewage septic area will have the just grass seeds. Is the rest of the wildflowers more along the perimeter?
It is, yeah.
Okay. the full perimeter, or is it as it abuts the left and the eastern, western sides of the property?
Wow. Somehow I'm stuck in a draw facility. Utility. Come on, Pan.
Is that erase button?
Yeah. How do I get the pan? Oh. So what you can't see, or maybe you can see, I have lawn mix A, seed mix C,
Oh,
right
okay.
by the basin,
Yeah.
and then basin seed mix inside the basin. So we have delineations where we call out the various mixes. So seed mix C is the slope mix, which is for all intents and purposes the wildflower mix.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Wish I had a point.
That's as close as it seems like you're going to get. I can see the eraser though, that's for sure.
Oh, you can? Well,
I can,
you
yeah.
use that then. Yeah, so seed mix C here, lawn mix there,
Yeah.
basin mix, lawn mix A. And lawn mix A is, it's the manicured lawn.
Yeah. Okay.
So we define that for the benefit of the contractor.
Perfect. Okay. So this talks back to what Jeannie had asked about the ability to have insects attracted, if you will, to the area. Okay. I think
Yep.
that's it. If you need any milkweed, you're welcome to my property because we apparently have no problem growing milkweed.
Monarchs love it.
That's
All
it from me,
right.
Jeannie.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think, is it safe to open it up now? Okay. So I can't see everybody because there's, I suggest, I don't know, can you maybe
You want to stop
not
sharing?
screen share?
If you could stop the screen share, Bill, or I can stop it for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, look at that. Now I can see all these black dots. Okay. If anybody would like to speak, please hit the raise your hand motion thing or something, clapping, or do something on your screen and I'll know it's you.
Looks like Kathy Christopherson has her hand raised.
Thank you. And Mark looks like he's there too. So Kathy, did you want to speak?
Yes, please. Can you clarify for me? I believe I heard you say tonight the building will be principally heated and cooled with gas, which is not what you told the Conservation Commission.
If I may, yeah, gas is a secondary backup fuel source. It's electric with heat pumps.
Right.
Bill was mistaken.
Yeah, that's what you told the Conservation Commission, and tonight I heard principally heated and cooled with gas.
My bad. The
Yes.
architect knows better.
Thank you. That's my
Always.
question.
Mark?
Yeah, I got a few questions.
Sure.
Number one, what's the cost of this about right now? With the garage on the east side and without the garage on the east side?
Here, John, that's for you. I don't know that answer.
I'll pass that to Tony.
Okay, passing around the round robin. So it roughly the estimated cost of construction is 5.4 million with the 2 garage bays, which are add alternates. And those, I believe the add alternate for those 2 garage bays was about $97,000.
So the total cost is 5.2 right now for that whole thing.
5.4 for the estimated cost of construction and
Of the whole complex is what I'm trying to get at. What is the total cost?
total project cost is
That's everything done. Drive in.
7.4 million.
And you're saying how much you get that without the garage? 200,000, you said?
No, I said the two-bay garage is worth about $97,000.
So you could take another 100,000 off of that to save money if we needed to.
That's how the
Okay.
bid is set up.
So Mark, this is a site plan review. So if you have questions specifically around the site,
Yeah, I
The-
do. I just wanted to ask what the cost
okay,
was.
no, I just wanted to keep you focused on the site plan review
right.
part of this.
Okay, the second question I have is on the east side where all that water is gonna go, to disperse. That's gonna end up coming down behind all these houses. How are you gonna slow that water down? Because it's gonna be a lot of water coming through there at one time when we have a big storm.
Yeah, that's the purpose of the detention basin. So the detention basin holds the water and slowly bleeds it out.
Right, but what I'm saying is if we get a large storm and the water's flowing for a long time, how are you gonna stop the erosion at the end of the apron where the water's gonna disperse down behind our houses?
Well, the water that comes out of that pipe, no matter what storm it is, flows at a pretty low velocity. And it goes through a 50-foot long stone apron to spread it out. So it meets the stormwater quality standards. And, part of those standards is that we don't impact the downstream abutters. And it's going to discharge to that dug ditch that goes to the fire pond.
Because when it rains now, heavy storms, we get a lot of water that comes down through there and it backs up. So that's why I'm wondering, with more water coming, how are you gonna slow that down?
Yeah, the detention basins slow it.
It will slow it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the point of the thing. Yeah.
The other thing is, why do we need a water line from the elementary school to the facility?
We're not doing that anymore.
So there'll be no water line. You're not digging behind any of these houses or anything.
No, we're doing an on-site well, just a small well.
Okay, so, and what would be the warranty of the septic considering the water table so high?
Well, the septic's
I
designed.
understand septic, it's above the water table,
Yeah,
but
right.
it usually gets saturated sooner or later, and depending on how much of it is used.
This is a pretty small leach field because the flows out of this facility it's 444 gallons per day. So that septic should, as long as they do the basic maintenance and pump those septic tanks, that septic should last a pretty long time. So what we found is soils like this, which are the Paxton fine sandy loams, they tend to last a little bit longer than some of the other systems which clog up fast. So that septic is 4.5 feet above ground.
Yeah, you can see where the grade is. It's a 3 to 1 to grade. But I was just making
So
sure that,
it's got a very low flow over a pretty substantial area. It should be not an issue.
Okay, and are there any sidewalks that are going to be from the road to the, walking up that apparatus for safety wise? People walking out of there or around there?
No, the only sidewalks go from the accessible space or the front public parking space into the facility because there are no sidewalks that exist on 119 right now, Main Street. So there's nothing for us to connect to.
Okay.
And Mass DOT doesn't want somebody pulling up in front of the station while on Main Street and stopping and getting out. They want them to get into the site and get out of the traveled way.
So that there won't be any kind of walking or anything for people walking down there. It's still going to be just unsafe.
Right, and there will be signs, no parking, no stopping along the frontage of the project where there aren't right now. Mass DOT is going to mandate that.
Okay, I think you've answered my questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Anybody else? It's a very big silence.
Yeah, no, who has their hands?
Roberta Flashman raised hand.
There we go.
That's why
Thank
there's
you.
a big silence. Okay, sorry about that. Roberta.
Hi. So you have an electric car charge?
No, again, Bill mentioned there's a space for electric car charger. We're required to do that by code, but we do not have the electrical car charger on that pad. We bring electrical and conduit out to that area for a future device. So it's all laid out and planned for, but the device is not actually part of this project. It can be provided should the town choose at any future date.
Hopefully a grant funded type of thing.
Okay. It sounded like when Tricia was asking you about your dewatering system, and you were talking about running water through silt sacks and such and removing all the silt. But it sounded like after that, it was just going out into the street.
Some will.
Will this be happening after mid-October?
Probably not, because that would create a potential frosting or freezing condition.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about.
So water leaves the site now when it rains, but the water that leaves the site after dewatering can't be dirty water. It has to be clean water. So if he discharges some water to the gutter of the street in a very minor way, then that's an allowed use. Otherwise, he's got to do dewatering basins interior to the site, which he will dig a hole, line the edge with probably straw bales or something like that. And then he'll fill that hole and he'll have to let that settle down, and it will slowly either seep into the ground or across the ground. But he's got to get rid of the water in one form or another, and he's not going to put it in a tanker. He's going to discharge to the ground surface after some sort of a treatment so that there's no silt going anywhere. And he cannot use the drainage system as a dewatering basin. We don't allow that because he would silt it up. So what the best way for him to do it is lots of little depressions that are controlled. And likewise, he's going to have to make sure that he's not going to be able to open up a 200-foot long trench and dewater it for days on end. We're just not going to let that happen. He's got to do it in small increments so that he can control where the water goes and how much water goes wherever it needs to go.
Depending on the volume, he may need to consider a frac tank and then slowly discharge from the frac tank.
That's a possibility. Those silt bags that I mentioned are pretty much just a frac tank. It's the same kind of thing. It's a filter fabric. You surround it by straw, and it just slowly seeps and weeps. And when it gets full, you have to stop pumping and you have to deal with it. Usually we use a frac tank when we have contaminated waste. But how this guy's going to achieve that is, number one, subject to review and approval, but we're not telling him you're only going to do it this way. We're telling him when you dewater, this is the end result. And you will present that to us so that we can agree that you're going to meet our need. So that I'm not going to tell him you can only do it this way because that'll increase cost. If he has another way of doing it, means and methods, we're obligated to let him explain some sort of methodology for his dewatering system. One thing I'm trying to say very crystal and clearly, dewatering is going to be a big deal on this site. He's going to have to pay attention to it, and so are we. We're not pretending that it's not a big deal. It will be a big deal, but only for part of the year, because we've already done test holes out there. We did test holes in January, we did test holes in February, test holes in March, we did test holes in June. I think we even did them in July. So the groundwater after the spring melt goes down pretty fast. So hopefully by May, groundwater is down five feet. We know for sure that come June, groundwater is down more than 7 feet. So it's got a pretty good migration from either 2 or 3 feet below finished grade to more than 7 feet when we hit the summer. And our last test holes were at the beginning of the drought, not in the middle of the drought of last year. So we're pretty comfortable saying we know it's a perched water table that drops later on in summer and spring. So he or she, the contractor, are going to have to take that into account when they do their scheduling and their planning. Because it's going to cost them a lot of money to properly dewater. And if they delay, that's to their benefit cost-wise, but it affects their schedule.
Will
And
the
I didn't-
contractor, sorry, go ahead, Roberta.
Well, I didn't hear you mention, and you mentioned to us, and I just wanted to make sure that you're going to surround the catch basins at the front of the construction with sandbags, so nothing goes down there from dewatering.
No, they have silt sacks in them. So a silt sack is an insert that allows clean water to flow through, but it catches silt, sediment, and debris. So the water that flows into the catch basin is clean. And then they pull those silt sacks up on a regular basis. You're not supposed to, you can reuse them once, and then you have to replace them. What a lot of contractors do is they put filter fabric underneath the grate, and we don't allow that. That's somebody comes along and pokes a hole in it, and then it just becomes a silly thing. So that's what's out front. We can't use sandbags in the right of way because they're a vehicular obstacle, but these silt sacks actually sit in, and they work very, very well. And that's what DOT is going to tell us we need to do. And
So
then at the end of the project,
those need to be checked after every storm.
yeah, that's part of the
Or
SWIP.
frequently.
Right, that's part of the SWIP. At the end of the project, we've written into the specification that the contractor has to flush, he has to clean all the catch basins, that new and old, and he has to flush the drainage system in such a manner that he's not going to silt up the detention basin, so that when the town inherits the drainage system, it's clean and it's ready to use and no maintenance is required.
And nothing from the flush goes out to the brook.
To the brook now. If discharge happens to the brook, then it's going to be hundreds of feet away and it's going to have plenty of time to travel. And again, nothing leaves any of those drainage dewatering basins unless it's clean water. So we'd have clean water just simply flowing down the hill. And that would happen. You wouldn't do, you can't dewater in the middle of a, summer thunderstorm or when the precedent condition is soaking wet already. He just wouldn't be able to do it.
And one last one. If vehicles are being washed, is the water going into the front catch basins?
They're going into the slot drains. There's slot drains before you hit Main Street. And then they discharge to that little, with the apparatus slot drain will discharge to that little basin in front of the parking lot. And the other slot drain from East Philly Drive will discharge to the second basin, which has the constructed wetlands in it.
Ultimately, where does that go?
That goes into the constructed wetlands and then out to the brook.
So all vehicle washing ends up out in the brook?
No, ideally, certainly all vehicle washing after a response has to occur inside the building, because you presume that the vehicle after a response has some soot or whatever, and that can't be allowed to release into the environment. The type of washing that happens outside in the front door is usually just rinsing off the vehicle so that they can polish it. It's not car washing. And certainly not, these are questions more for the chief than for me, because that's how he does it. But certainly if they do a response like the big fire that they had next town over, that kind of car washing or soot or a car accident where something happened, those kind of things have to be rinsed into the floor drain holding tanks, because that's potentially hazardous materials. And likewise, even the firemen, they need to clean their equipment, and that needs to be done in a conscientious way.
I think those are my questions. Thank you.
Sure.
I see Kim Clinton's hand up.
Hi, yes, thank you for your time. I just had a quick question about the flow for the septic. Did you say that was 440 gallons?
444.
444 gallons. Okay.
Yeah.
Could you tell me how you arrived at that number?
Sure. Well, what we did was Title V gives you, Title V is the state sanitary code or environmental code now. Title V gives you loading rates for various uses. So what we did is we sat down with the Neshoba Board of Health agent and we did a calculation saying, okay, we have this use here, we have this use here, and therefore it generates this amount of wastewater. We've been doing public safety facilities for 30 years now, and half of them are on septic systems. So this isn't something that this isn't something we've created anew. Most of the operations that occur inside of a police station and a fire station are administrative. So they're very similar to an office space. A cell we consider to be half a bedroom because a bedroom under Title V says that 2 people can cohabitate in a bedroom, but in a cell, you're not allowed to have 2 people in a cell. So we take half a bedroom. We have meeting spaces in here. We have some lockers, all those kind of things. So we took the floor plan and we presented it with the calculated loading to the Board of Health agent. And he and his supervisor over at Neshoba's Board of Health agreed with our assessment of what the design flows were. And that was actually the way Title V works is you get a flow and then they double it for design. So the average daily flow was 222, but for design purposes, we double it to 444. And that's the flow that goes out to the septic.
Could you just be a little more specific about how you came to that, the flow? You mentioned, half of a cell or a cell is half of a person. How many other people did you account for in that flow rate?
Well, we accounted for the office use. So we took the square footage of office use. And that's a very standard way of doing it. You take square footage of office space. I don't honestly remember what the phone number is. Somebody's got some back feed going on.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was just wondering, so it's not based on the number of people, it's based on the number of square feet?
It depends. Well, Title V gives you a variety of methodologies to do it. For office space, it's based on the average occupancy according to the building code, and it's based on square footage. At one point, there was a large meeting room in this building, and we had to base the flow on the occupancy of the number of seats in that meeting room. That meeting room's been pulled out of the calculation because it affected the flow too much. So we use Title V criteria, which are pretty spelled out what you can and can't use and how you calculate the flows. And that has been reviewed by the agent for the Board of Health as being a reasonable assessment of what the flows are going to be.
Okay, so it's not based on the number of police officers working at that time and the number of employees, whoever's working at that time, or the average number of people working during a specific shift. I thought it was like 150 gallons per person per day.
No, well, it isn't. No, the short answer is no. We didn't use that methodology. And the other part of that is, for policemen, they're not present at the facility throughout their entire shift, so they don't necessarily use all of the facility. But we use the requirements of Title V, so the code, in order to do that. And we got peer reviewed by the Board of Health agent. We haven't actually been in front of the Board of Health. And they're fine with the way we calculated it and the numbers that we derived.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Other questions?
That's some really good questions tonight.
I don't see anything else.
Nothing in chat either.
Okay, Terry, do you want to just, if Sergio's iPhone and Ashby 1767 could identify their names so we can add you to the list of participants?
Yeah, Sergio Longley Martinez.
Did you get that, Terry?
Yep, Sergio Long.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Ashby 1767.
They probably fell asleep.
I'm not that boring. Maybe I am.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, Alan. Once everybody who wants to speak has spoken, we are able to close the public part of the hearing, which means that nothing else will get added to the record.
I can't, I'm allowed to give clarifying material to a topic that was addressed,
Right.
but yeah, no new topics can be
No
raised.
new topics,
Yeah.
right.
So then I'd like to bring up a topic.
Okay.
Okay, so under section 881, public hearing, it says unless the original site plan approval specifically allows certain modifications or alterations without the necessity of a new public hearing, all requests for amendments shall require a new public hearing to be advertised and conducted in accordance with these rules. So I think we should contemplate allowing for minor modifications without having to have a new public hearing.
Would this include the waiver or the, what did we agree on?
No, so let's just say places and the
Okay.
team
Mhm.
developing our plans and working with the contractor come up and the contractor says, well, you know, all the contractor bids come back and say, well, I need to do this. I need this much extra space
Mhm.
that's not currently shown on the plans. If it's a real minor modification or even perhaps like a field change, I think we want to allow for that without having to go back out to public
Through the
hearing.
entire process, yeah.
Yeah.
That's very normal, yeah.
Yeah, so that would be part of the decision, Tricia?
Yeah.
But didn't we have to discuss it here though to make the public
Mm.
aware of that? I don't know.
No, that, we'll go into deliberations and we can make that part of the decision.
Okay.
I agree. But you did raise it, so that was well done.
Thank you.
That would be our Tricia. All right, so we can close the hearing to public comment and changes. And then we will deliberate at our next specially scheduled meeting.
Can I make a suggestion?
You sure can.
Can you close the public hearing with the understanding that the applicant will amend their waiver request?
Oh,
If you want us to do that, we are happy to do that.
Yeah,
Does
to
it-
include the stormwater one. Yeah.
Yeah, the 25-year storm, right? And then there's no ambiguity. It's a defined topic. We talked about it during the
It's
public
almost done.
process, and it's more clerical than anything else.
Me.
so that's closing the public hearing, but also allowing for,
The submittal of the waiver for stormwater.
Formal submittal of the stormwater waiver as discussed during the public hearing.
okay.
Just my request.
Mhm.
I don't get to make the motion.
I was gonna second.
Who's going to make that motion? Tricia?
Okay, I make the motion.
Okay.
We close the public hearing and comments, but we allow for the applicant to file the 6.1 waiver to the 25-year storm.
As discussed during the public hearing.
Yeah.
Second.
Jim seconded that. Terry's still writing, so we're just going to wait for a minute. You ready? Okay.
No, Terry,
Not ready yet. Still
Okay, just
writing.
a little bit of a clarification. Closing public hearing, allowing for formal submittal of waiver of stormwater as discussed during public hearing. 6.2. 6.2. Yep, 6.2
No,
of
6.1.
waivers. 6.1?
6.1, correct.
6.1, yeah.
6.1. Why do I have 6.2 written down?
Just want to
Okay.
cover that one too.
I'm telling you, I'm just adding it up, Jim.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. 6.1. Okay, I'm all set. Thank you.
All right. So we've got a motion and a second. Alan,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Jeannie, I, Tricia,
Aye.
Terry.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This has been really instructive and beautifully presented. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You guys have very, very good questions.
Thank you. We are actually modestly competent.
Agreed.
Don't let it get out. Don't let it get out.
So that's it. We're going to have a meeting. Can we have a meeting next Wednesday night, board? We will notify the applicant. I don't know. Do we notify you, Bill? Do we notify Bob? I mean, who are we supposed to notify of our?
We don't have to.
We don't have to notify.
We do not have to notify anyone. Anyone that's interested is here. And if you're proposing March 17th, do you have a time?
7
That's St.
o'clock.
Patrick's Day.
Yeah, we're
Oh,
not.
that's so exciting. We can all come in.
No.
Green.
Corned
Are
beef
you
and
not
cabbage
around,
at
Terry?
night.
What'd you
I'm
say?
Eating.
You're eating. So do you want to meet later or not
No,
at all?
We can do.
You could just turn off your video and eat.
Nah, you'll eat with me. I'll turn on my video. So 7 or 7:30, I'm fine.
Trisha, it's up. Do you want to put it off till 7:30 or do you want to stick with 7?
Let's do 7.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So we will meet again at 7 o'clock on
what?
Wednesday, the 17th of
Okay.
March. Alan, you're not muted.
Yeah, I'm saying yes to Lorraine, who's telling me that I have to remember this day.
Thank you, Lorraine. All right.
17th of March at 7. Okay.
And we will take up the other agenda items. I'll get a new agenda posted this week.
Okay. Hearing closed at 9:32 is what I have.
Hey, Terry, if it's
Yes,
a
ma'am.
different link or something for next week, can you email us or send an Outlook invite or something?
Oh, you know what? That's a really great point because we're going to go back to our regular meeting link. So I will send that out to everyone.
Send it out to me and I'll make sure it's on the agenda.
Okay.
Do we have other business before we close that can't wait? Hallelujah. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Third.
Fourth.
Go.
Aye.
Let's go. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Very much. And thank you to all the people who came tonight.
Thanks, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
Pretty cool, huh? Yeah, groovy.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you all.
you.
See y'all
Bye-bye.
later. Bye-bye.
Close at 9:34.
Yeah. Y'all sit there.
I'm all set. I'm going to make up names as to who motioned and closed.
I don't think you even need to bother.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you.
All right, great. Good night, everybody.
Night. Recording.